Hello, everyone. This is our first episode of our English A-level podcast. I'm Mr. Smyth. I teach A-level at the Academy, and I'm joined by Miss Raven, our head of English. Miss Raven, if you'd like to tell us something about your experiences with A-level teaching.
Okay, so why do I enjoy A-level teaching? So I've been teaching A-level for 12 years, and it is completely separate to GCSE. So first of all, we got a little bit more flexibility with what we choose to teach, whereas at GCSE, it's very regimented, isn't it? It's like we have to do this, we have to do that. And there's always this criteria to meet. And at A-level, there's a separate AO. In fact, there's a couple more AOs, and it just gives you that flexibility to look at kind of theory, choose the text that we enjoy. It's much more discussion based, it's much more relaxed, and you've got a real opportunity to kind of delve into a text, whereas the GCSE kind of doesn't enable you to do that. And I have been lucky over the years. I've taught a wide range of A-level texts, and I have to say, I think the spec that we at the moment is my favourite to teach.
Yes. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I totally agree with what you say about the our approach to A-level versus GCSE, with the whole everything's regimented in the GCSE curriculum, whereas that's the kind of one thing that I say to, like, I don't know, entice students, is that you have so much more choice and you can study what you're interested in. Even though we do have a spec for what we teach, outside of that, when it comes to the coursework portion, or even just the wider reading that students do, there's that just absolute freedom to dive into whatever they're interested in, whether it's like a fiction prose novel, whether it's a poetry, whether it's a drama. So I think that's one of the best things about teaching A-level. And I've taught A-level every year that I've been at the Academy. We started out with like an EdXL A-level, looking at Macbeth and like spoken language, and now we do the AQA, and that's teaching The Great Gatsby and Othello, stuff that is really kind of my interest in literature. So that's one of the reasons why I really love teaching A-level.
I think it's the bigger ideas as well. So at GCSE, might turn around and say, okay, Macbeth is this terrible person because he allows greed to consume him, whereas at A-level you kind of look at that actually power doesn't necessarily need to be a bad thing. It's kind of, you're driven by your own morality, and that kind of deeper layer of meaning is what you explore at A-level, and that kind of makes it more interesting. But I have to say, it opens up the book as well. So we just don't have the time to go into the depth during GCSE that I'd like to. In A-level we do, so I think that's another reason why I enjoy it.
Yeah, and the fact that it's like all undercut by students' reading of the text. I feel like in GCSE there's only there's that answer key, right, where if they have this, this, or this is what we're looking for the marks. But as soon as you get to A-level, that kind of just gets chucked out, and it's all about interpretation. It's about what, like, you as a student, or what you as a person bring to the text, and how that can be rewarded, which is good. And I think that what students who make that jump from GCSE to A-level, what they get out of it, and what obviously we hope our students get out of it, is the fact that their opinions are valued and their opinions do matter more than they maybe realized they did in years prior.
And it really prepares you for A-level as well, because A-level, not A-level, university.
Yeah.
So you go into these huge lecture halls with hundreds and hundreds of people, and you're just drowning in all of this information. But then you break off into these smaller seminars, and you have an opportunity to kind of really break down that discussion, which the GCSE doesn't really enable. And I've done a few things over the years, and ranged in group sizes for A-level as well. And I had quite a big group a couple of years ago. It was 14 of them. And we split up into two sides of the table, and I gave them cards. So one had like a critical theory card, another one had play the feminist card, And we did like these almost salon topics. So, you know, a bit of a controversial statement on the text that we were reading, and both sides of the room had to argue with each other, and they had to use the cards and then tap out when they didn't have enough ideas, and then somebody else would jump in. And it was absolutely brilliant. We used to have triple lessons there, so 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
But we went for about an hour and 40 minutes just talking. That was about Othello, that one.
Yeah.
And just, you just don't have that opportunity in year 11. So if you enjoy talking, A level is for you.
Yeah. And our kind of that's I've come across a lot of students, and you know, who have come up through their GCSE into A level, who definitely I could see that potential for discussion in them when they were in like year 10 or 11, and just, you know, they have the ideas, but they don't have the kind of forum in a GCSE lesson to be able to share their ideas and kind of challenge other people. But as soon as you have that chance in A level, the classes are a lot smaller, as you said. And I mean, the past few years, our classes haven't been bigger than 10. We've had probably maybe 4 years ago, we had a class of 24. But
ooh, ouch.
Yeah, I mean, that was good, because with that, you had time and there were tons of people who wanted to debate, but it almost got too overwhelming.
Yeah.
But the past few years, we've had 10, 8, 9, 7. That's kind of our average for a class. I mean, there's nothing wrong with a larger A-level class, but having that kind of core group of anywhere from 7 to 12 students, it opens the door for all kinds of discussion, all kinds of ideas to flow, which is, I mean, it's great when we don't have to do any of the poking and prodding to start a discussion.
Yes.
I mean, I like jumping into discussions, but you know, if students want to control it and take the debate wherever they want to go with it, it just means I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to chip in unless I actually want to, which is good. I think in terms of talking about texts, I know that we obviously have texts that have kind of shaped our interest in English. So what I'm going to put to you, Miss Raven, first is, what is your most impactful text? What text has had the most impact on you as an English student and teacher, I guess?
So I've really had to think hard about this, because I'm a great believer in different texts affect you in different ways according to kind of your age, or, you know, so if I went right back to primary school, for example, The Indian in the Cupboard was the first book that I read that really gave me a passion for reading.
Right.
And I've always said Jane Eyre. For years now, everybody knows that's my favorite book, and I've always said, right, that's kind of what really sparked that kind of real depth of knowledge. But actually, I don't think it is. So I've had a bit of a rethink recently. I love Victorian literature. That's kind of where my passion is. You know, that sensational style, quite interesting in the Industrial Revolution, just how much that kind of changed our way of living, and how texts during that time reflect that massive change in society.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I think it was Tess of the D'Urbervilles.
Okay.
So I will explain why. So I think I'm a bit of I call it a closet feminist. So I love feminism. I love standing up for women's rights. But I am one of those people who does like somebody to open the door for me, and, you know, things like that. Probably a bit hypocritical. And one of the things that I love about Tess, not that I love, that's the wrong word, that frustrated me about the novel, was actually Angel's character, and because I saw him as being really weak, whereas in a lot of the other Victorian fiction that I've read, you do kind of have that kind of strong male character, whereas in Tess, with Angel, you know, this wonderful woman who had this horrendous experience, and she had that opportunity for happiness. He could have kind of made her happy, and he didn't, and then she ended up suffering in a way that I just can't even imagine in modern society. And I just feel like that book really kind of sums up morality in the Victorian era, but also has a bit of the kind of gothic, the romance, the, you know, the shock factor. It's kind of got a bit of everything, which I thought Jane Eyre did. But yeah, I think it'd have to be Tess of the D'Urbervilles for me.
It's a good choice.
How about you?
I also had to think kind of back to, I didn't go as far back as primary school. I mean, I guess it's a bit, maybe a bit different for me. I read a lot of. It's gonna sound funny, but also very, 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 very like cliche. There was a series of books that I read when I was young called The Screech Owls, and it was about a hockey team, an ice hockey team. So very, very stereotypical. But then it was kind of like a Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew style. They essentially got like caught up in all these different scenarios. So they were involved in like kidnappings and all this stuff. So I mean that kind of got my appetite for reading going, because they were fun to read, and it was like my passion. It was hockey. It was what I loved. But I think thinking about like a proper text, it was probably Catcher in the Rye.
Okay.
Yeah, which again, it might be a bit cliche because a lot of people say that Catcher in the Rye was like definitive for them. But I mean, I don't mind falling into stereotypes. But yeah, I read that when I was in high school, and for me, it was all about this kid. Holden just wanted to. He was criticizing society. He didn't like what he saw. He thought that everyone was fake, and kind of, as a teenager, similar age, trying to figure out what I wanted to, align myself with in society. That text really spoke to me, and obviously the fact that it is that kind of coming of age story, it really, I guess I read it at the right time in my life, and just, I don't know, it was kind of, it's unfiltered. It's, he calls people out if he thinks that they're being phonies, and I don't know, I like that. It really spoke to me. So
see, that's interesting. It's quite, it's one of those books you either love it or hate it.
Yeah.
And I think as an English teacher as well, some English teachers say, no, I can't stand that book. And some will say, no, that's an absolute inspiration.
Yeah. Which I think is great because it creates debate automatically. Yeah. So, and that's, I have used extracts from Catcher in the Rye before in my teaching, mainly because it's been so impactful for me. I've just thrown extracts at students wherever I can, just to hopefully get them interested in the story that really kind of captivated me when I was younger.
I like the style. I like the language style in it, I have to say, because it's really reflective of kind of his character.
Yes.
Which I think is quite clever to do without it sounding too, I'm really sure the word I'm looking for, fake in itself.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is it felt like it was authentic. It felt like I could pick out Holden Caulfield's voice, and I understood what Salinger was trying to do with it, or at least I thought I did.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I did. But yeah, so that was probably the one that really spoke to me. And then if I'll break the rules a bit. And there's another book that I read. I guess the difference between my schooling in Canada and here is that we didn't have like the spec to tell us what we had to read. So it was pretty much, you choose whatever book you wanted to study, and you went from there to write your essay on, to do your presentation. So it was, I guess, similar to the coursework aspect, but like I was doing that from probably around the year 10, my year 10 age. But there was a book that I read called The Wars, and it was about the First World War. It was this author, Timothy Findlay, very, very popular Canadian author. And it was kind of just about the horrors and reality of World War I from this kind of very innocent perspective. And it was a banned book when it first came out, because there are some really intense, kind of graphically violent scenes in it. He's pretty much attacked by like some other soldiers of his, like, from his own unit. And it was the way that it was written was just absolutely gripping, and like I'll never forget it. Like, it just really stands out in my mind as, like, when I read it, I realized that literature could go anywhere, and that kind of there were no boundaries, essentially, that anything could be talked about in literature.
Well, I'll give that a go. It sounds really good.
Yeah.
There, really, haven't you? Like, I mean, the amount of pupils who say to me, why do we need to study English? You know, I can speak English. And it's not about that. It's about a reflection of the world. It's about those deep issues that we shy away from. And sometimes we're scared to discuss and confront. And, you know, that's why it's such an amazing subject.
Yeah. And it was, funny enough, it was one of my teachers that in high school who was really pushed me towards that novel. He said it's really challenging. It is a difficult read, but I give you full respect if you go through with it. I think the problem is that I enjoyed it so much, I didn't do the best job of like trying to analyze it and unpick it and present it. So afterwards, the feedback that he gave me was, you probably could have done a bit more with this. And I was fully understanding of the fact that I was just more kind of enthralled with the reading of the story rather than trying to like analyze it and pick it apart too much. So I thought that was funny. One other, I guess that leads us into wanting to talk about memorable teachers.
Yes.
That teacher that I just mentioned, Mr. Brown, I had him for 2 years for my kind of grade 11 and grade 12, which is the equivalent of, grade 12. Yeah, grade 11 and grade 12, which is the equivalent of our A-level age groups. And he wasn't a young teacher, but he had tons of different bits of, I guess, differentiation is what you call them. But like he would throw different texts at us. In the 1 year we were everyone was doing Hamlet for a Shakespeare, and everyone knew that in grade 12 that was the year that you did Hamlet. And he just kind of said, well, we're not going to do that. We're going to do King Lear instead. And like that was, for me, again, another definitive moment, was getting to study a Shakespeare text that I didn't really know anything about at the time. Like we had done the Romeo and Juliet, we had talked about Macbeth, and everyone was getting ready for Hamlet, but then he pulled King Lear out of nowhere, and like that made so much difference for me in terms of being an English student. I was blown away by that, and like it's probably up there in terms of my favorite Shakespeare's. So I think his just kind of unorthodox method, maybe, or not willing to follow what everyone else was doing, had a massive impact on me and my learning. What about you?
Oh, that's so interesting that you said that, because it's for that reason which I've got my teacher. So his name is hopefully Mr. Carr, and he worked at my school for years. I'm sure he was there when the ground was built, and retired, bless him, and he went to work in prisons, funnily enough, like teaching literature to prisoners. And he taught me for A-level, and this man would sit there at the front of his desk, like he's a little old man, and he'd have his book up like your kind of real old-fashioned English teacher, and he would just read and talk at us for the whole hour. You'd never get away with that now.
No,
and
never.
He didn't care if we didn't write anything. He didn't care if we, didn't do this and that. But I would leave his lessons and my head would be hurting so much because of how he'd made me think. And he had this calming voice, and he just threw the rule book out. He's like, let's just talk about this. And funnily enough, he gave me a bit of an interest in D.H. Lawrence, which is what I ended up doing my dissertation in at university. And I sent him a copy of my dissertation and just said to him, it was you that kind of really inspired me here. I can remember him teaching us, I think it's Trevor Griffiths, Comedians. That's terrible. I should know the name of the play. And we must have spent probably about 7 months on this one play. Again, just never be able to do it now. But he said, if it's passion you want, then that's what I'll give you. And I'm not going to follow the rule book.
I like that. I mean, I feel like I kind of identify with that. I mean, I'm more than happy to kind of go with what's needed. But I don't think you haven't observed any of my A-level lessons before.
No.
I'm sure that any of the current year 12s or any past student would tell you that we would kind of throw out the rule book every now and then. There would be a lesson where we kind of, it's like that thing on Wikipedia when you click on one article and all of a sudden 5 minutes later, you were looking at something about, I don't know, Shakespeare, and then all of a sudden you're at the Battle of Gettysburg. Like, you don't know how you got there, but you somehow got there. I think it's fun because it keeps students on their toes, and it keeps us on our toes as well. One thing that this Mr. Brown teacher did, we were studying some aspect of Lord of the Rings, and just at the beginning of one lesson, he pulls out this really, just out of nowhere, like a suitcase record player, and just pulls out this vinyl Led Zeppelin album and just started playing Led Zeppelin. Just about nothing other than, he afterwards then told us, obviously, the connection with, I think the song was the Battle of Evermore, and obviously Zeppelin's influences that, Tolkien had on them. So it was so random, but, looking back on it, I can see exactly why he's done it. And then in my own practice, like, I've definitely just thrown music at students before and said, listen to this has some connection to literature, and then we'll, figure out what it is after.
I think that's brilliant. I like that.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that just sticks in my memory. That's something that I will always kind of remember about studying English at high school, was just some random moments like that.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, I guess we've been talking about kind of our formative English memories in A-level and secondary school. But where does that take us is I think what a lot of students do question is, where does English take you? You mentioned, why do we study English? And that's what students often ask. What did you do for your English degree at uni?
So I took a year out after A-level, just because I just needed some time where I wasn't studying.
Yeah.
Worked really hard at school. I went to a really, really shockingly bad school. So, most of my education is self-taught. But I'm not natural with things like that. I have to kind of teach myself, and I just needed a little bit of a break. So when I went for a modular course. So in my first year, I did English, history, philosophy, and psychology, and I did a unit on each. And then at the end of the first year, you had to cut it in half to only 2. Right. So I kind of thought, yeah, philosophy, that's so mature. I'm going to be so good at that. I'm such a deep thinker. But it really wasn't what I thought it was going to be, nor was psychology. So I ended up cutting it to English and history in the second year. And that's when I really started to enjoy the history element of it. I'm not a great fan of, so one of the units was on the potato famine in Ireland, and it was just so boring. But I like modern history, Cold War, that kind of stuff. And then in the third year, you could major in just one, or you could end up with a joint honours. And I decided I'd enjoyed history so much, I kept the joint honours. So mine's English literature with history, because I opted to do my dissertation in English and not history. But yeah, I just thought it was a nice balance, just having something else, because even as an English teacher, I love literature, I love English, but there are some things in English I don't enjoy. I did a unit on Spanish tragedy. Oh, so boring, so boring. But then I did another one on postmodernism and feminism, and we looked at kind of Virginia Woolf, and it was really interesting. And so it kind of depends on where your passion lies. But that's, for me, that's why I quite like doing like a modular course, because it just gave me a bit of flexibility.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds really, really similar to my university kind of pathway. Ours was kind of, you just applied for whatever kind of subject you wanted. So like I just went in for like arts, which is just any kind of English, humanities, like everything under the sun, pretty much, that's not like science or maths or business. So to like progress, you just had to take a certain number of credits in whatever kind of faculty you wanted. So I did my I had the requirements for English and history. But in my first year, I kind of mixed it up. I added some classics, and then I took a physical anthropology course, which I didn't realize at the time was like 25% biology.
That's what I thought about psychology. I didn't realize it was maths.
Yeah. So, and those lectures for the physical anthropology course were 3-hour night lectures.
Oh.
So after my first one at about 10 p.m., I just kind of went, I'm packing this in. And then I picked up film studies, which turned out to be like a massive find for me, because like film studies turned out to be pretty much be my minor. I made sure that I had film studies in every single year. In my fourth year, my kind of seminar courses were, I had a history one, and my English one was half English and half film.
Okay.
I mean, it was never intended, it was never planned, but it just kind of turned out that it was this course that it was taught by a film professor as well. It wasn't even taught by an English professor. But it was, yeah, so there were about 11 English students and 11 film students, and I was able to combine pretty much English and film in one. So that was really lucky. But I'm kind of with you in terms of like the history side of things. I had no interest in things like the potato famine or like Tudor history, any kind of medieval history. That was all like, didn't want to deal with that. I got through those courses just so I could get to what I wanted to study.
And it's so linked, isn't it? You know, the thing is,
yeah.
History are so linked. You kind of have to understand that kind of context to really pull apart that meaning.
Yeah, and that kind of really, I was able to line that up because I did a big chunk of American history and then a lot of American literature, and obviously some Canadian literature as well. But it was really kind of, they go hand in hand, and it's really easy to see, as you said, the similarities and how they kind of bounce off each other. So yeah, that was kind of my pathway, and then I ended up doing a double major in English and history. So quite similar degrees, I would say. And I know a lot of our students do kind of ask, what A levels go with what do I look for in university? I think, what you said about psychology and history, and any kind of like anthropology, sociology, they all mix really nicely. They complement each other, I guess is the right way to phrase it. Yeah, we were talking earlier about the fact that there is a lot of reading in university, and that kind of leads me to the big question of what is the one text that everyone loves, or that is kind of, I don't know, praised universally, that you just couldn't get through, you couldn't get on board with.
Okay, you ready for this?
Yeah, I do want to know this.
Right, Milton's Paradise Lost.
Ooh.
So we had an entire unit on this at university. It was in my second year. I can even remember it. And everybody was raving about it. So in the seminars, people were going off on these tangents like, wow, this is just mind-blowing literature. I did not understand a word. I had to Google the plot about 55 times. And this is when dial-up internet was around. I couldn't just jump on the phone, and I understood that it was about kind of the fall of man, and I understood that story, but that made it really frustrating because every time I tried to read it, I thought, I know what this story is, but I can't put the story to the words.
Yeah.
And I got so frustrated. And I'm quite a fan of Milton, but Paradise Lost, he just talks forever, and that you really could have cut that quite a lot. B, it's about the fallen man. We all know the story of the Garden of Eden. We all know what the devil did.
Yeah.
Why do we need a gazillion pages about it? But to this day, I still could not tell you about the language in it. I probably misunderstood it. It's probably not even about the fall of man. I have no idea.
I mean, it's better than me. I don't think I've even attempted it. I mean, I might have at some point, but I don't think I've gone anywhere near it. Which, now that you said that, reminds me that it might have been my second year. Whatever, I don't remember what unit it was from, but obviously the Canterbury Tales showed up.
Oh, yeah.
They always do. And I mean, that one is just I don't know. I've kind of like blanked it out from memory. The only reason I remember this because you just brought up Paradise Lost, and I thought, oh yeah, I forgot about Chaucer. Obviously,
speak properly, man. Speak properly.
Yeah. I remember various, well, not various, not even various. No, something about Miller's Tale and something. I don't know. It's not a happy memory. I stumbled through it. I don't know how. I don't even remember what I did with it. It just, as soon as I could throw it away, I did.
A bit like it's poetry anthology.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I think the one that a lot of people go on and on about, and it's something that I think I tried to pick it up and read it, / it doesn't really appeal to me, which is weird. I mean, I haven't tried in a few years, but Slaughterhouse-Five.
Oh, okay.
Which is weird because that like kind of weird Kurt Vonnegut style is something that I normally like, but I've never been, I don't know. I tried to read it in high school and then I didn't really get anywhere with it. And like, admittedly, I haven't gone back to it in, I don't know, more than a few years now. But it just, I don't know. I've never had the impetus to be like, oh yeah, I really want to go and read that novel now. So it's just,
like if we went back to these things, how would it be? So David Didow on Twitter, he's just done this massive kind of so loads of different teachers have read out sections of Paradise Lost.
Yeah.
And I've seen it a few times and I've thought, oh, should I give it a listen? Should I go back to it? It's been 14 years since the incident. Like, can I cope with this again? I don't know. Maybe that's a challenge we should set ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be a good challenge. I like that idea. And I guess we have talked a lot about the authors that we have enjoyed and ones that we've struggled with. What about you as an author? What have your attempts at writing been like?
Okay. So
I'm genuinely interested to find out.
Yeah, I won't give everybody the link because otherwise I'll just be mortified. But
Ooh.
I'm a big fan of Michael McIntyre as a comedian. So one of the reasons why I like him is I like that kind of observationalist, tell it as it is kind of humour, and it just makes me laugh. And so I enjoy writing actually, and I have my own blog. And I've written quite a few pieces, about being dumped on Valentine's Day. That was a good one. The mascara like covered in my face, but just really writing in a blunt, direct way. And I sent it to a few friends over the years, and they always say to me, "Oh, this is really funny. Like, you're just being really honest." And then when I became a mum, I thought, oh, I'll give this a go, trying to write. I didn't want to be like the unmumsy mum, like swearing a lot and just saying, I want to kick my kid, that kind of thing. Just kind of be honest. And that's what I've done. I've written quite a few things about being a mum. One of them got published on a blog website, which I was quite proud of. And I did a take on "'Twas the Night Before Christmas." But this was when I was going back from maternity leave, and just about that kind of the guilt that I was feeling about leaving her, but also that I'm sure she'll be fine. But I've just got one in front of me now, and I did this thing, but Dear Diary, and then I just went on to talk about just how wonderful my day was, and my child, I floated into nursery, my child was wonderful, blah blah blah, and then I put Dear Real World, I swore 2.5 billion times before 9 a.m. 2 staff phoned in sick, blah, 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 blah. I wore heels. Heels. What was I thinking? And then about how I picked my child up and she did the biggest poo ever on me. And people were just cracked up going, this is what parenting is really like. So, yeah, I kind of write what I think is quite funny observationalist humour about kind of being a mum. I've thought a few times about taking it further, maybe setting up like an anonymous website and just seeing what it happens, but I'm not brave enough, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, it's the bravery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There for someone to critique.
Yeah. No, I get what you mean about the bravery thing.
Yeah.
That's like the biggest thing. oh, I've tried to do something. Now, how is anyone gonna react? It's not me.
Yeah, quite a scary thought.
Yeah. I don't have as much, I don't know, I guess experience as you do with being published. I've tried to do stuff, but it's just I can't get past like openings and introductions of things. That's the biggest stumbling block for me, and then I just kind of get bored and then give up.
What do you want to write about? What's your kind of angle?
The big angle that I've been trying to work through the last little while, it's mainly been dystopian stuff.
Okay.
So not too distant future, but also kind of futuristic at the same time. So it's kind of like every time I start writing, I just feel like I'm just doing like Blade Runner. So I always feel like it's like gritty and dark, but also like violent lights in the background. Yeah, and I feel like just feel like I'm ripping off something like Blade Runner. But a lot of at least the content has been kind of the individual within the larger society. And I don't know if I'm talking out of the side of my mouth, but I feel like I've tried to like incorporate Gothic elements into a dystopian setting.
Yeah.
Yeah, just I guess, I don't know, weirdly, if it goes back to the whole kind of understanding and figuring out society of the whole like catcher in the rye element of, who am I in a society? Where do I fit in? I guess I'm maybe trying to use that dystopian, I don't know, genre to try and maybe update the way that I look at society.
I think sometimes with writing, you've got to get it down and then just leave it. So when I'm writing, I actually do it as an email to myself on my phone, and I'll just type it all in what I want to say, and then I kind of leave it for a few days,
Yeah.
and then I go back and I'll reread it through and I'll edit it a little bit, and then I might leave it a little bit longer. So sometimes I'll go back to it 5, 6, 7 times before I'm even happy with it. But I don't write anything at length. So I write quite short pieces or parodies on poems, things like that.
Yeah.
I did for my an ex-colleague of mine at my previous school, I did a parody of the opening of Romeo and Juliet, the prologue, because it was the only thing that he could remember from English. That got a good few laughs. But yeah, that took me a while to edit as well. Because the editing process is really important. I think even when you're writing a literature essay, writing it and being able to go back through it and edit it, I think is a skill.
I agree. And that's, I am kind of, I do wish that there was like a creative writing element in what we taught at A level. Because I know that, I think one of the specifications does have like rewriting or like redrafting sections of a text or something. I don't remember where I read that, but yeah, I don't know. I wish there was, as much as I do love the analytical unpicking of a text, sometimes I wish there was that kind of free reign to do some creative writing and have students carve out their own ideas. Yeah, but I mean, there's nothing to say that we can't encourage that in A-level lessons. I've never really tried to do it, but because it kind of all gets left behind in GCSE. But it might be something that I want to try and put into an A-level lesson to give them their own shot at understanding a genre. Maybe ask them to try and write something in a Gothic style or a Victorian style.
I think it's a good idea, because I know that the combined course, so literature and language, that has a creative writing element, and I taught that for the first time last year, and we did the Kite Runner, and we had to give them certain chapters in the novel and they had to write it from a character's point of view.
That's what it was.
It does give them a deeper understanding. So for example, something like Othello, I'm not sure it would work, because I don't know if you can ever really write what Iago's thinking, but just thinking something like Ben Elton's First Casualty, like from his wife's point of view, so you only really hear her at the beginning and the end. how did she feel at the end, having, you know, well, I won't ruin it just in case.
Yeah.
But yeah, thinking about those characters. So, yeah, I think maybe it's something to try.
I think that would be good for Gatsby as well,
Oh, yes.
because you could pick any character in Gatsby and you know, alter the perspective and, you know, kick Nick out of the way for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. Or Daisy would be interesting, wouldn't she?
I think Daisy would be absolutely boring. I can't stand Daisy
Oh, I
Buchanan.
can't stand her either. That's why I'm thinking, you know, what's her?
What would she have to say?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I mean, that could be a good, you know, you could turn it into, not to sound, I don't know, you could turn it into like a piece of feminist writing. You could, you know, give her a proper voice.
Yeah, she's very annoying.
Yeah. Yeah, that is the one thing I do often say to students is, yeah, no, I know Daisy is annoying, but just, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely feel sorry for Gatsby in that book, I have to say.
Yeah. Oh, one last thing before we wrap up. I was going to pose some would you rathers
Okay.
to you.
Yeah.
Would you rather have Jay Gatsby construct you with an idealistic perfection you could never realistically attain and pursue you with a fanatical zeal, or would you rather have a Gatsby themed wedding?
Oh, probably him pursue me.
Ooh.
That's really bad. And I kind of suppose maybe that's where my only tiny bit of empathy for Daisy kind of comes in, really. Like,
Yeah.
you know, that must have made her feel good, even though she had the purity of everything else.
Yeah.
You know, and I know, yeah, even if I could never live up to it, if somebody saw me like that, would that make me feel good? Oh, maybe it would. Oh, that's bad, isn't it?
I don't know if it's bad. I think just the other option is just horrible.
Yeah, I know. At Gatsby themed wedding, everybody would be absolutely paralytic by, you know,
Yeah.
them.
And they'd all be dressed like flappers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, here's a good one. Would you rather have Romeo compare you to the sun 25 times a day, or stab yourself with a dagger?
Oh God, I think stab myself with the dagger. I can't bear neediness. That's how. I absolutely hate that. You know,
Yeah.
it'd be cute for the first few days, and then I'd be going, seriously.
25 times is a lot.
No, just look up synonyms for sun. Just throw something else at me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's deep. Dark.
Okay. Would you rather look at the portrait of Dorian Gray in the end, or have to get the last word in of every single conversation with the phrase "art for art's sake"? You know.
Probably the second one, just because I'd find that hilarious.
Yeah.
I just find that really, really funny, and I'd see that as a challenge. Like, how could I get this in? Like, that would be quite a challenge, I think. So yeah, probably that one.
Yeah.
And Dorian Gray scares me.
Yeah. That's way too creepy.
Yeah.
I agree. Would you rather read all 379,000 articles that come up when you search "is Jane Eyre a feminist novel" on the internet, or say, "Reader, I married him" to every new person you and your spouse meet?
Definitely second one. It is. I think I absolutely love that line. And there's another one where she talks about how their hearts are kind of intertwined, you know, where he proposes to her as well. I've actually got that quotation on a necklace, which an ex-department brought me as a leaving gift. But yeah, like, reader, I married him. That's control and power. That I him, despite everything that I was fighting against. I got my man, even though he was disabled in the end. But you know, that's a whole other. And she ended up being rich, but she still got her man. Yeah, definitely.
Right. We'll do one more.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure you know who this is, so I didn't want to ask I'll ask it anyway.
Okay, go on.
Okay. Would you rather listen to Gilbert Gottfried narrate the 38-hour audio version of Anna Karenina, or date a man who must explain the golden era of Russian fiction every time he climaxes?
Is the option neither?
No, it's a would you rather. You have to choose.
Oh. Oh. Probably the first one, and I'll try and kind of think about something else. Yeah, that's kind of a hard one, to be fair.
Yeah.
I've never been a fan of that. I haven't even really read. Yeah, no, the first one. That's a horrible one to end with.
It is a horrible one to end with.
Funny though, I like it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's all we really want. That's all we really got time for, I guess, is what they say.
Okay.
So yeah, I would say to anyone who's listened or watched the whole way through, if you want to, I don't know, hear more, or if you have anything you want to suggest that we discuss like this, let us know. I enjoyed getting to talk about my interest in English, and I think Miss Raven, you did as well.
Yeah, no, we don't often do things like this, do we? We're so caught up in the day and getting through it. Sometimes it's nice to reflect on why we do what we do.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, if people want to suggest things that we talk about, or if you feel like you want to share anything with us, we can always talk about it if we do this again. But let us know. And other than that, thank you for watching and listening. Stay safe, and we will see you all in school soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.